Hey there, Kim from Love Your Design. Now, I did a Facebook Live this morning, very quick one, and I promised you a half-hour video with all of the detail. See how we go. It might not be quite half an hour. And the reason I did that is because there are a lot of interlocking parts at the moment, and all of which come together for fairly rapid shift over the next week around the way in which we understand our role in the world and the way in which we actually have been, in a sense, almost locked into particular ways of experiencing ourselves because the system held us in that place. And so those locks are going to undo, and we are going to have realizations over the next few days that are going to radically transform ourselves individually, but also because there are enough of us doing that work now, what it means is that we can actually unlock those keys within the system, by which I mean the collective, the whole of human consciousness, and also beyond that. Human consciousness is part of, obviously, the bigger web of consciousness. And not everyone is going to get this, and it's not like everyone's all of a sudden going to, wake up, but it's going to make a really big change to how we experience things. So let's have a look at the chart. Now, the main thing that you can see here, this is the 11th of March at just after midnight in Universal Time. And we've got the Sun in gate 22, line 4, and Neptune in 22, line 4, which is here. Both of these are here. And I read this morning, but I'm going to read again because I think it's really important to understand. I won't read the whole thing, but this is from my favorite, Hilary Barrett. So this is an I Ching book, and the I Ching is if you like, the source code for the gates in human design. It doesn't give the entire meaning, but it does give a very strong indication of what that gate is about, the energy of that gate. And gate 22 is generally a gate that is about how we can find the essence of things, how we can really get to what's authentic and true about something. And when we're engaged with the energy of gate 22, it's not so much about actually making anything out there happen. It's more about really digging in and finding where is the truth, more particularly, where is the essence of something. It's often called grace and beauty, and that's because the true essence of something always carries a certain beauty. Line 4 says, a beautiful, dazzling energy makes its entrance like a suitor coming for his bride with his glossy horses in all their finery. So this beautiful energy showing up. It's like it's going to carry me away with this, dazzling energy. And what this is about is the energy for new beginnings. So this is, if you like, not a long-term relationship with the dazzling suitor on the horse. It's not that this is going to be a commitment to this one thing and it's going to carry us away, for the rest of our lives. But this is the energy to get us started. It's hope that there can be a different kind of future. New possibilities shine brightly, and there is the power of a fine horse to lend them momentum and get them underway. It's hard to see what substance there might be here, and you might be suspicious about it. Maybe it's not the new beginning I think it is. But this is just the nature of this energy at hand, which is for lighting up new beginnings, not for taking us on the full journey. You won't lose anything in the encounter, and there is the potential for great gains. Now, what's important for me looking at that is that we have to have hope for being able to imagine what the future might be like. But we can't get caught up in this is what it's going to be like. And so I'm going to kind of hitch my wagon to this one idea. And the reason that that's important is because if we have a look here in gate 12, so remember the Sun, Neptune, the Sun, and I've got it a little bit early. Venus will pop over into the 22 later that day, or in the 22. And then in the 12, we have a checklist, and we have chaos. Now I'm going to talk to you about both of those. This gate 12 is the gate of blocked, as you can see, obstruction, being blocked, just finding that things are always stopping us from being able to get to that deeper authentic sense, the deeper authentic essence of things. And not being able to get that beautiful energy up to the throat. So here's a new beginning, but I'm blocked. I can't get it to actually start. Things won't move. I can't get this new beginning happening because there are these constant blockages. I'm thinking, as an example, today, in the US, the legislature in Georgia is in the process of passing some new legislation that limits voter rights. And that's a good example. It's like we did all that work. We thought that, we got our senators up, and now there's this new thing that we have to deal with. And it's this sense of, what do we have to do to bring the new potential to the table? What do we have to do to make it real? And you might have something along those lines in your own personal life that you think, I've been trying and trying to get this to happen. And here's another problem. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is this chaos energy in this gate 12, the gate of being blocked. And this says we are working with the forces of chaos right now. We have to be flexible. We have to be on the ground and real with these energies, because what we're doing is leaving behind an old way of seeing ourselves and our lives and the way in which we come together. And also, what is the truth and the essence of something that is being that the old truths are actually dissolving. Neptune dissolves old ways of seeing things. And so we have this dissolving process, and we have to not rush forward, because if we do, we're going to bring the old way of seeing things into the new energy, and we don't want that. So it's slow. We're kind of picking our way through, and we have to let things fall apart, and we have to let the chaos inform us about how we are going to move forward. What is the best way for us to move forward? We also have a checklist there. Now, a checklist is about using chaos magic. So I think it's really interesting that I think it's a Centaur, a checklist is turning up at a time when we have chaos in this gate of being blocked. A checklist is the way that yin and yang come together in order to create new, really almost sudden magical shifts in situations. Now, that's a really interesting thing. It's going to take us down here just quickly. I'm going to do a little detour down to gate 3, which is the gate of chaos, the gate of new beginnings, where you can see it's called sprouting. And it's like this whole new energy is sprouting, but it's quite chaotic. There's so many things that could possibly happen, and who knows which one of those things is the thing that's going to be the best of all of the possibilities. And so we have to go very slowly as we work through these new beginnings. And on the 16th of March, so just within the next week, Pluto is going to move. It's currently up here in gate 61, the gate of truth. Down here into the 60, big shift down to the root. And down here in gate 60, we have this gate of measuring or limitations. And Pluto there is going to give us this really profound transformation to the way that we work with reality, that we stop seeing ourselves being blocked or limited and start to see these things as feedback, if you like, universal consciousness feeding back to us. This is the way to go. That's not going to work. Or just work on this a little bit more, persevere a little bit more, because there's something deeper in here. You really have to work to find out what the benefit is in here for you. So just on that, so that's going to happen next week. So we've got a similar theme. And then early April, the 9th of April, Chiron's going to go into gate 21, and it's about biting through to the truth, really doggedly persevering with something because you know that you're not at the truth yet. So Chiron's going to go into that gate soon as well. So we've got a lot of this kind of really sticking with something until you find that the real essence of what's going on there. Okay, so let's head from here. Let's head up to the 47. Now, the 47 is what Gene Keys calls the programming partner of the 22. What that means, it's astrologically opposite. So 22's in Pisces, 47's in Virgo. They're exactly opposite each other. They have a polarity or a complementary energy that always work together. You cannot understand one without the other. So the 47 is so important in this whole story. And in the 47, we have the Earth activation. We also have Pandora, Minerva, and Sphinx. But more particularly, let me check my notes. Here in the 64, I'll come back to Pandora, but here in the 64, we have Vesta. So Vesta is actually feeding down into that Earth energy in the 47. The 47 you can see is called confined. It says, I'm trapped here. I feel that my world has kind of collapsed into this tiny little space, and it's not giving me what I need in order to be able to go out and do what I want to do in the world. I feel confined. I feel exhausted from the effort. Again, this effort of trying to make things happen is exhausting me. My inner world and my outer world are not in good relationship with each other. If when we have the 47 energy, if we try and push out in the world, we just get more and more exhausted and things get more and more difficult for us. The 47 is an energy for us to stop trying to make things happen and to really come back and just be present with ourselves. And then remember the 22, the programming partner, we understand the two energies together. Just come back and connect with, even if you have to persevere, even if it takes longer than you expected, but just stay with that process of finding the essence of something, where the beauty is for you in this, where the sense of grace is for you in this experience. So we have the 47, this sense of being confined and trapped and not able to move forward because there are limitations and blockages everywhere that we look. And so we're forced back into our interior world to try to create change there. Now, Vesta, one of the goddess asteroids, the 4 goddess asteroids, so powerful energy. She's an asteroid that orbits between Mars and Jupiter, and a very powerful energy. She's in the 64 transiting at the moment. You can see it says not yet across. Now, there's 64 gates in human design. They're based on the source code of 64 hexagrams in the I Ching. And the 64th hexagram is the last of the hexagrams. Now, 63, if I go to here, which is obviously the one before 64, it says already across. We're done. We're complete. The crossing is finished. The cycle is done. Everything is in its place. It's all done now. But then 64 is kind of like this void before we start the new, right? Before we get back to 1 in the new cycle. 64 says we're not across yet. So it's kind of weird. 63 is the end and 64 is not quite the end. But 64 is the beginning of the new cycle. So already the fact that Vesta, this goddess asteroid that I'll tell you the meaning in a minute, but let me finish with the gate, is in this gate that says we're not yet across. We have the seeds of the new, and our job is really to nourish those seeds, to be very, very careful about what we're doing with those seeds. My notes on that are in another book, but that's okay. So Vesta represents what is sacred to us and what we are prepared to devote ourselves to. So we have this devotion at the moment to these new seeds that are arising from the chaos of the old having come to completion, and this space that we're in now. It's like, where are we going now? What are we going to do now? How are we going to move forward from here? Totally devoted with that Vesta energy to that process, to really tuning into our inner world. Remember, 47 says I can't move forward out there. I have to find the essence in myself. I just want to cut across here to the 63. Now you can see, as I said, if I move that forward an hour or two, Venus will have gone into the 22. So, but I did just want to have a look in here, because in the 63, we have Nessus there. Nessus is a very, very powerful energy that's been playing out for the last few years, kind of under the radar thing. It was in gate 37 for a few years and is now up in the 63, moves very slowly. Nessus is about family patterns that are unhealthy, family patterns that need to be healed. What we could call abuse patterns, but they're not necessarily abuse in that kind of gross sense of abuse, but they can just be what we could call environmental failures. And I mentioned that in the Facebook Live video this morning. Things like, just simple things like that I was, a Dr. Spock baby who was left in my cot for long hours. And I used to cry, as I have the 4037, I need to be at the center, I need to be propped in a little cot in front of the fire in the living room where everyone's doing their thing, and I'll sleep like a baby. Put me in a room by myself, can't sleep there. I just need to be in the center of things. So Dr. Spock said, put them in their room on their own in their cot and leave them there for 3 hours. And that was just like hell on earth for me as a baby. In fact, I have memories of it. And so that's an environmental failure. My mother meant the best, but it just wasn't right for me as a person. So when I'm talking about abuse, I'm talking about things that have these really deep roots in the way in which we have become conditioned by these experiences that just weren't right for us, and how we have learned to protect ourselves, how we have learned to mask our true selves, all of these things that we do to adjust and adapt. So Nessus taps into all of that, as well as the more obvious kind of, sexual abuse, rape, just really bad stuff as well. Nessus was not a nice guy. So we have Nessus sitting here in the 63. That 63 says that things are really, things are done. So we're talking about the completion of a whole lot of cycles of, or not a whole lot of cycles, a whole lot of patterns of cruelty and abuse within the greater system. And those, because they have been unseen and unspoken, we have been, on some level, we have learned to keep those trapped inside of ourselves, locked inside of ourselves. They didn't come out and see the light. I just want to pop back across here to Pandora. Can't remember, was she in? 47. Pandora, when Pandora shows up, we know what we have here is, she's got all of those things in the jar, and she takes the lid off and everything comes out. And so you can see, now I've talked about Nessus, this idea of all of the, the things that we thought were curses that we held tight inside of us. But when we open the lid, all that's left is hope. We have hope for the future. I think I mentioned on Facebook last week, I'm just going to look for Iris. Iris is the goddess of the rainbow, and she's the goddess of hope, and she's sitting right there, 22-3. She's very active at the moment, because hope is important right now, this sense of hope for the future, and Pandora brings that to the table as well, this idea of hope, and about letting go of ideas that we had thought were things about us that we were ashamed of and we should keep really hidden away. And now we don't have to anymore. And one of the reasons that we don't have to anymore is that Jupiter has been here in the 13. Now, just let me check. It's interesting. I've been looking at different time frames for things over a few days. I'm just looking at where things are on this day. So Jupiter has been here in the 13. This is the gate of allies. This is a gate where coming together and sharing our story gives us incredible strength when we come together with a shared story of not necessarily oppression, but it can be, or a certain pattern of wounding. So the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matters, these are great examples of Gate 13 at work. A therapy group, for example, a meditation group. Anytime we come together with allies, and that group gives us the strength to open up, like Pandora, to take the lid off and realize that we are not the only person who is suffering from this systemic issue, and we can share with each other. And then each one of us gets some level of healing from that individually, but the group itself makes us able to create change that was not possible if we were just doing that healing alone. So that Gate 13 is really important at the moment. And throughout 2021, because Saturn and Jupiter are going to be activating gate 13 on and off throughout the year. So watch for the way people are starting to build these grassroots movements, these revolutionary change agent grassroots movement that are just going to change everything forever. I want to come down now to the 19 and the 49. These are two other Aquarian gates that Saturn and Jupiter will be activating throughout this period. Jupiter is about to go to the 49. I just need to double check because I do not want to move the transit chart while we're looking at it, but I also don't want to give you the wrong information. So I'm just checking. So later in the day on the 11th, Jupiter's going to go into the 49. I'm just going to pop it forward a little bit, actually. Let's move it to 11 o'clock. That should move everything to where I want it, hopefully. Yeah, here we are, look. So now Venus has gone into the 22 and Jupiter's gone into the 49. So down here in the 49, we have Mercury and Jupiter. This is the gate of radical transformation. This is a gate that says we have to seek the truth. We can no longer live in, I'm going to say fantasies, but the old fantasies, but it's the old delusions. It's the way in which we carried those stories that were protective stories. You know, that person looked at me wrong, but they didn't look at me wrong. It's just that as a kid, people looked at me that way and that was not safe for me. So if someone looks at me that way now, I pull my story out. And I use it as a shield, so I don't know about the pain on the inside. Gate 49 talks about letting go of, in fact, the whole channel talks about being able to see the actual lived truth of things rather than those fantasies that we want to hold to us that are preventing change. Jupiter and Saturn have just gone through gate 41, which is the gate of fantasies. And that was the start of this process, this beautiful process that's going to play out through 21 and 22 of starting to get a more realistic sense of reality in a way. So gate 19 is about being present on the ground for every step of the journey. And Saturn is there now on the 11th, and this Saturn is about being real about things. Let's get real about this. We can't keep turning our experiences into taking it and kind of melding it in to fit our story. We have to stand right here and really look at what's happening, really feel what's happening, and start to see the ways in which our stories have been keeping us blocked. They've been protecting us. They've done a really amazing job, but now it's time for us to know how we want to step away from those old stories of being a victim, how we want to step into a greater sense of agency, and how we want to start to imagine a different kind of future. So the 19 is this gate of nearing where there's this beautiful subtle kind of energy that's coming that we can feel. Something new, it's something new, and we need to engage with that, and we need to say, what do you need from me today? What are you asking me as, in a sense, the human emissary for this energy on the planet in the physical? What do you need from me today? Do you need me to go and walk on the beach? Do you need me to, to meditate, listen to music, eat some delicious food, start a group, do some videos, whatever it is, have a nap. What is it that you need from me today in order to engage and bring this new energy down and anchor it on the planet? And then the 49 is this gate of radical change where we gradually, by engaging slowly, persistently, step by step with these energies on a daily basis, as if we're tending a garden, that we create this radical change. But there are also, it's like it's slow, and then happens really quickly, because I think here, let me check. Yes, in the 49. Krantor. Now, Krantor has been in gate 49 for quite a long time. Krantor is sudden and unexpected shifts, but Mercury is an activator. So this can sit here for a long time building energy in this gate of radical change, but Mercury actually creates a shift. And the moon does as well. So the moon, I think, is there today in the 49. So we can expect fairly rapid change to be happening. Now, the other thing up here, we have Mars in this gate 20 with Admatos. And again, Admatos has been sitting in this gate 20 for years. I remember when it went in a couple of years ago, my entire coaching practice just filled up with people with the 3024 because Admatos represents blockages. So another energy of blockages, right? And all the 3420 manifesting generators started coming to me and saying, I feel blocked, I feel blocked, I feel blocked. And it was because Admatos had moved into gate 20. Now, gate 20 is the gate of being absolutely present in the moment. But Admatos is not just about blockages. It's about deep transformation, really deep transformation, big transformation. So with Mars now transiting over that, triggering, activating that Admatos energy, it's moving the blockages. So you can see there's a lot of energy here around these old blockages moving. People from the 60s saying, we've been working on this forever, why is it not shifting? And there is absolutely a lot of energy here now to say that things are shifting. Not that out there they're going to shift so much, but the way in which we work with blockages is going to change because we are going to see these things as feedback rather than life saying, but that's enough. You just stop now. You're pitiful and weak and you can't, there's no hope and there's no point, right? It's like, here, it's not a roadblock. It's feedback that tells me how to flexibly approach this situation so that I can create the kind of outcomes I've been imagining. So Admatos is asking for really deep transformation as Mars turns up there and gives us the courage and the desire to stay in the moment, not to leave this moment, not to go off and, dissociate or go into our addictions or wherever our defenses were taking us, our conditioning was taking us, but to really stay and say, hang on, what is going on here? What's really going on here? Now, one last thing, we're going to be right on 30 minutes. One last thing is here in gate 10, we have Ixion, a trans-Neptunian object. Now, a couple of things about Ixion, just going back to the US briefly. The US has a Pluto return happening in 2022, and it's here in gate 60. Pluto was in gate 60, line 2, when the US was when the 1776, whenever it was, gate 60, line 2. And Pluto will be back at that exact point in 2022, and that represents for a nation an entirely new period of experience, an entire new, basically, national identity. So there are, I will write more about that Pluto return because it's important for what's going on in the world at the moment. At the time of, or what happens when we have a Pluto return, and it's 184 years, so none of us are likely to have one, but nations will often have them. And what happens is we have a whole group of planets called Plutinos, and they're all kind of related somewhat to Pluto. One of them is Orcus, which I'm pretty sure is sitting up here, somewhere in the 64, I think. Yeah, Orcus here in the 64 one. So remember, this was new beginnings, finding new beginnings. But I want to talk particularly about Ixion because Ixion is also back in the position it was in when Pluto, in the 1776 chart. So Orcus, Ixion, Pluto, I can't think of the other one. They all tend to come back to the same position together because they all have around about the same orbital period. So it's not just a Pluto return, it's an Ixion return, an Orcus return, Pluto return, and the fourth one that I can't remember return. Ixion in particular is significant because of this Mars activation, right? It's creating a channel with Ixion at the time when Ixion is returning to the position it was in when the US was originally formed as a nation. It plays out everywhere else as well, just because of the Mars activation there. It's active anyway. It plays out for each one of us. Now, Ixion represents extreme self-interest. One of the ways in which I've always worked with Ixion is this idea that the other person is seen as not really human. So I might treat my slaves like, maybe treat my dogs better than my slaves, for example. There's this great piece I read in a book on by a feminist anthropologist, and she was very interested to see in a literature review that the tribes who were obviously cannibalistic, when they were asked about being cannibals, I don't even know where this was or when it was, I can't remember the details, but they said, we're not cannibals. We don't eat people. But what they meant was we don't eat our people, and they didn't consider the other tribes as being their people. And so it was fine to eat other tribes, but not to eat their people. So long as they didn't eat their people, they didn't consider themselves cannibals. And I think there is this kind of thing that someone who's not in our tribe is not really human. And this is a profoundly important part of the shift from the old tribal energies, this huge shift that we're in at the moment, into more of an individual/collective energy. I'll talk more about that later. It's not so bad as some people seem to think it's going to be. In fact, it's a really good thing. So Ixion represents that tendency to see the other as not human, and therefore not to have to expend my mirror neurons on actually having empathy for that person at all, but really just being my full bandwidth, being about my self-interest. So there is no joint intent. There is no coming together to find common ground. There is nothing except this need to pull together with other people in my tribe who I may or may not get on with to neutralize this threat to my own self-interest. Ixion is a place where we can say there is a lot of corruption at the moment. And just popping down here to 49 again, 49 says, allies are marching out to meet corruption. This is the power of the whole unfolding creative process. So the fact that Ixion sits here, this establishment energy, this colonial lack of empathy for other people, this extreme self-interest and a sense that you have the entitlement to take anything that you want, and the ownership of these non-humans, or ownership. I know ownership for Australian Aboriginals, for instance, ownership's not so much a thing, it's a belonging. The belonging of the relationships of people to the land, not relevant. And it's the way within each one of us personally that we tend not to have empathy for, to be able to find the bandwidth to say, wow, your lived experience is so different to mine. I didn't realize how you were experiencing this. And it's for all of us to be present, to be really stopped from moving forward until we do this step of being able to see every single person as human, but also, everything is being alive, everything is being part of this system of consciousness that we are part of. And right now, while Mars is in that gate 20, that process is in play. And the only way we can do that, or it's kind of synergistic, the two are they play into each other. As we're doing that, we're actually healing wounds within ourselves of disconnection as well. So you can see there's so much all kind of saying the same thing, this idea of being flexible, of being present, of reconnecting with the whole, of finding our allies, of connecting with grassroots movements to have a shared imagination for change and to be very, very persistent, but then to see these sudden shifts that can happen and change everything. And just, Iris and Pandora bringing us hope for a better future, which I think for some people is a place where it can really feel as if the future has nothing but, there's a sense of dread about the future, but that's not my reading of what's going on at all. I think we're in a point where we are having this really fast breakthrough, and it might take a few years because evolution is slow and it might feel slow to us, but it's actually incredibly fast. So hopefully that's helpful for you in understanding the depth and significance of the change that's going on at the moment, and to give you some capacity to be able to, some greater capacity to be able to work with that in a more fulsome way. Okay, Kim from Love Your Design, and I'll see you around the place. Bye.